brother exposed my private health info. HIPAA lawsuit resulted, and he lost his medical license forever. I'm standing in my parents' kitchen with a paper plate bending in my hand, watching my brother gesture with his beer like he's telling a funny story, and then I hear my own diagnosis come out of his mouth. My words, my lab results, the thing I only whispered to one nurse and one therapist, turn into a punchline for our uncle. My ears go hot so fast it's like someone opened an oven door next to my face. For a second, I honestly think I misheard him, because who does that, who says that out loud, in a room full of people like it's their news to share? But then my mom's eyes flick to me, sharp and guilty, and my stomach drops. I taste metal. My fingers go numb around the plate, and I can feel my pulse in my throat like I'm choking on it. Stop, I say, but it comes out small like air leaking out a tire. My brother, Evan, doesn't even turn at first. He keeps talking, smiling, right in the attention. He's wearing his scrubs under a hoodie like he came straight from a shift because he loves the little halo it gives him. Dr. Evan, Hero Evan, the family's pride. Then he finally looks over, and the smile on his face falters for half a second when he sees mine. What? He says, like I interrupted him in the middle of something important. The room feels like it tilts. I set the plate down because my hand is shaking so hard the food is sliding. My voice gets louder without my permission. You just said my medical information, I say, out loud, in front of everyone. Evan blinks once, slow, and then his expression slides into that familiar condescending calm he uses when he wants to make you feel irrational. Relax, he says. It's not like I said your social security number. My uncle laughs, awkward, not sure if he's supposed to. My dad clears his throat like he's about to do the thing where he pretends this is normal. My mom presses her lips together so tight they turn white. And my brother, my own brother, shrugs like the problem is my reaction, not his behavior. I'm a doctor, he adds, like that's the end of the conversation. It was a Tuesday night 3 months earlier when I found the lump. I remember because I'd been rushing around after work, trying to make dinner, trying to keep my life in that barely holding it together groove. I wasn't dramatic about it at first. I poked at it in the shower, told myself it was hormonal, told myself I was being paranoid. Then I couldn't stop thinking about it, like my brain had latched onto the sensation and refused to let go. I booked an appointment with my GP the next day and sat in the waiting room staring at a fish tank that looked too clean, like it was trying to convince me everything in the world was orderly. My doctor didn't panic, which made me panic more. She said, "We'll just check," in that even tone professionals use when they're about to change the course of your life. The tests were fast after that. Ultrasound, biopsy, phone calls I took at work in a stairwell because I didn't want my colleagues to see my face. When I finally got the diagnosis, it didn't feel like a movie moment. There was no dramatic music. I was sitting in my car in a parking lot, looking at a dent in the dashboard I'd been meaning to fix, and my doctor was saying words I had to ask her to repeat because they sounded like they belonged to someone else. I remember the weird detail of my hands going cold on the steering wheel. I remember saying, "Okay," like I was confirming a dinner reservation. I told Evan last, not because I didn't love him, despite everything I did, but because I knew what he'd do. He'd take over. He'd talk at me in clinical terms and then get irritated when I didn't find it comforting. He'd make it about what he knew, who he could call, what he could pull strings for. And the truth I didn't want to admit was that I didn't trust him with my vulnerability. He'd never been safe with it. When we were kids and I cried, he'd mock me until I stopped. When I got anxious as an adult, he'd call it hysterics. He didn't do empathy. He did superiority. But our parents found out anyway, because my mom has never respected privacy if she thinks she's helping. I told her because I needed someone to drive me to a procedure, and I told her with conditions. Do not tell anyone, do not post anything, do not turn this into a family announcement. She cried, promised, squeezed my hand so hard it hurt, and then 2 days later my aunt texted, "Praying for you," with no context. That's when I realized the secret was already out in the soft, whispery way families spread information like gossip and call it love. Even then, Evan still didn't know. Not officially. Not for me. I kept it contained to my medical team, my partner, my therapist, and the few friends who wouldn't turn it into a group project. I was trying to survive, and I didn't have the energy to manage my brother's need to be the center of everything. So standing in my parents' kitchen, hearing him say it like it's his story to narrate, a part of me isn't even surprised. It's just worse than I imagined. I didn't tell you, I say, because my brain is scrambling for logic like that will fix it. How do you even know? Evan lifts his eyebrows. You really want to do this right now? He says, like I'm the one being inappropriate. My dad's eyes dart to the living room, where people are still talking, still laughing, unaware of the grenade that just rolled into the room. Not here, my dad says, automatically, which is the family motto whenever someone hurts me in a way that might make them look bad. No, I say, and I can hear my own voice shaking. Actually, yes. Here. Because you just did it here. My mom steps closer, hands fluttering like she's trying to gather the situation back into her control. Evan didn't mean anything, she says. He's just worried. Evan snorts. Yeah, he says, God forbid I'm informed about my sister's health. He turns to my uncle again like he's trying to regain the room. Anyway, it's treatable, he says, and my vision goes blurry because the casualness makes me feel like I'm going to throw up. Treatable. Like he's talking about a sprained ankle. Like I haven't been waking up at 3 a.m. with my heart racing because my body suddenly feels like a betrayal machine. I step closer to him, close enough that I can smell the antiseptic clinging to his hoodie. How? I say quietly, do you know? For the first time, Evan's eyes flick away. It's quick, but I see it. That tiny fracture of guilt. You're being dramatic, he says, and the words are a reflex for him, like breathing. I laugh once, sharp and ugly, because if I don't laugh, I'll scream. I'm being dramatic, I repeat. You just announced my diagnosis at a family get-together, and I'm dramatic. My aunt in the doorway pauses, sensing the tension. Is everything okay? She asks, voice hesitant. Evan smiles at her like he's soothing a patient. All good, he says. Just family stuff. I turn to my mom. You told him, I say, because that's the only explanation that makes sense. My mom's eyes fill instantly. I didn't, she starts, then stops because she can't lie convincingly when a lie is that obvious. She drops her gaze to the floor. I thought he should know, she whispers. Evan exhales like I'm exhausting him. There, he says, pointing at me like he's making a case. This is why I didn't want to say anything. Because you can't handle it. Something in my chest hardens. Not anger exactly. More like clarity. No, I say, this is why I didn't want you to know. Because you can't respect it. He opens his mouth, ready to talk over me, and I raise my hand. Not aggressive. Just a stop sign. Don't, I say. I'm leaving. My dad's face tightens. Don't make a scene, he mutters, because again, my pain is only a problem if it disrupts other people's comfort. I pick up my bag, and my fingers fumble with the strap because they're shaking. I can feel the room watching, the air thick with that sticky family attention. Evan follows me toward the front hall, lowering his voice like we're having a private conversation now. You're acting like I committed a crime, he says. I turn, and my voice comes out calm in a way that scares even me. You did, I say. He scoffs. Oh my God. Here we go. No, I say. You accessed my medical information without my consent, and then you shared it. That is a crime. Evan's face shifts. Anger, then that practiced professional composure again. I didn't access anything, he snaps. Mom told me. I stare at him. So you're lying? I say. Because you just told Uncle Mark details Mom doesn't even know. You told him about my staging. You told him what medication I'm on. Evan's jaw clenches. Because I'm smart, he says. Because I can infer things. Because I'm in medicine. And that's when my partner, Liam, appears behind me in the hallway, drawn by the noise. He's been holding a plate of food like he was trying to be normal for my sake, and his face goes hard when he looks at Evan. What did you do? Liam asks low. Evan's eyes flick to Liam with immediate irritation. Stay out of it, he says. Liam's voice doesn't rise, but it sharpens. Did you look at her records? Evan's silence is answer enough. I walk out. The front door closes behind me, and the sound is too loud in my ears. I get to my car and sit there gripping the steering wheel while my whole body trembles. Liam gets in the passenger seat, and neither of us speaks for a full minute. The street outside my parents' house is lit with fairy lights and people's laughter, and I feel like I'm underwater. Finally, Liam says, "We're not letting this go." I stare straight ahead, swallowing hard. "He's my brother," I say, like that should mean something. Liam's voice is gentle but firm. "And you're his sister," he says. And he still did it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Evan's tone, the way he said it like it was nothing, the way everyone's first instinct was to manage my reaction instead of his violation. At 2 a.m., I got up and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, and I did what I always do when I'm trying not to fall apart. I researched. I didn't start with revenge. I started with disbelief. I searched phrases like doctor-accessed family medical records consequences and unauthorized access electronic medical record discipline. The more I read, the more my stomach turned. There were articles about snooping in patient records and how hospitals tracked access logs. There were stories about people getting fired for looking up neighbors. There were warnings in plain language. Just because you work in healthcare doesn't mean you get a look. Consent matters. Need to know matters. I pulled up my patient portal and stared at my appointments listed there, the dates, the providers. A weird, cold thought kept circling. Evan knows too much. He knows more than Mom could have told him. He knows things I haven't told anyone except my doctors. At 9 a.m. the next morning, I called the hospital's privacy office. My voice shook when I asked, "Can you tell me if someone accessed my records?" The woman on the phone didn't sound surprised, which made me feel both relieved and sick. She said, "I can open an investigation," in a calm tone that made it feel real. She asked for my details. She asked if I knew the person's name and affiliation. When I said my brother, my throat tightened. There was a pause. Then she said, "Okay, we'll need his full name and department." I gave it to her, saying it felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. For the next week, my family tried to pretend nothing happened. Mom texted me recipes. Dad sent a call me message. Tasha posted a photo of her kids with a caption about family being everything. Evan texted once, "You embarrass Mom. You need to apologize." No mention of what he did. Not a hint of remorse. Just the familiar demand that I restore the family image. Then the call came. The hospital privacy officer told me they had confirmed inappropriate access. She used those words, careful and professional. She said my brother had accessed my chart multiple times across multiple dates, including on days he wasn't involved in my care. She said he had looked at lab results, imaging reports, physician notes. She said it was a serious violation. I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone to my ear, my hand pressed to my mouth, because I felt like I might make a sound I couldn't control. My skin prickled with shame, which made me furious. Why was I the one feeling shame? Why did it feel like my privacy was a weakness instead of a right? "What happens now?" I asked. She told me the hospital would take action under their policies. She told me I could file a formal complaint with the Government Health Privacy Office as well. She told me I could seek legal advice regarding civil remedies. Her tone stayed neutral, but I could hear the implication. What your brother did was not a small thing. When I hung up, Liam was standing in the doorway watching me. I didn't even have words yet. I just nodded once, and he walked over and sat beside me and took my hand like he was anchoring me to the world. The fallout hit fast, like a storm front rolling in. Evan called me that night, not to apologize, to threaten. "Are you trying to ruin my life?" he demanded the moment I answered. My mouth went dry. "You ruined your life," I said, and my voice sounded strange to me, steady, almost bored. It wasn't bravery. It was exhaustion. He laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "This is insane," he said. "You're acting like I assaulted you. I was looking out for you. You told people," I said. "You told Uncle Mark." "So," Evan snapped. "He's family. That's not your choice," I said. "That's mine." Evan's voice went low and dangerous. "Mom is hysterical," he said. "Dad's furious. Tasha says you've gone completely off the rails. If you don't stop this, you're going to tear the family apart." There it was. The script again. Not what he did. Not how I felt. Just the family's comfort and how my boundary threatened it. I inhaled slowly. "I didn't tear anything," I said. I found out you broke the law, and I reported it. That's it. Evan went silent for a beat, then said, "You think you're so righteous." I almost laughed. "I think I'm sick," I said, "and scared. And you used that." He hung up on me. A week later, I got a letter from the hospital confirming the breach and summarizing their findings in bland, careful language. Seeing it in writing made my hands shake all over again. It wasn't just emotional now. It was documented. Real. Something that would exist even if my family tried to rewrite the story. I also got messages from my mother that made my chest ache in a different way. "Evan is distraught. He didn't mean it. Can't you just let it go? He was worried about you. We're family." And the one that made me stare at my phone for a full minute. "You're holding a grudge at the worst possible time." I wanted to scream. The worst possible time? For who? For me, the person with the diagnosis? Or for them, the people dealing with consequences? I didn't reply for hours. When I did, it was one sentence. "I'm protecting myself." That sentence detonated everything. My dad showed up at my house 2 days later. He didn't knock politely. He pounded like he was the police. Liam opened the door because my hands were shaking too much to do it. Dad pushed past him like boundaries were imaginary and stormed into my living room. His face was red, veins standing out on his neck. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted. I stood by the couch, barefoot, feeling like I was back in my childhood, except now I could tell him to leave. My voice came out quiet. "Get out," I said. Dad pointed at me. "Your brother has worked his whole life for that license," he said. "And you're going to destroy him over curiosity?" Curiosity. That word made something snap inside my chest. "He accessed my records," I said. "He shared my health information." Dad waved his hand like he was swatting a fly. "He's a doctor," he barked. "He knows how this works." "That's why it's worse," I said. "Because he knows." Dad's eyes narrowed. "You always do this," he said. "You always have to be the victim. You always have to make things dramatic." I felt my throat tighten, and for a second I couldn't speak. Liam stepped forward, jaw tight. "You need to leave," he said. Dad turned on Liam. "Don't tell me what to do in my daughter's house." "It's our house," Liam said evenly. "And you're yelling at her." Dad looked back at me, and his voice dropped into that cold disappointment that used to make me fold. "After everything we've done for you," he said, "you repay us by ruining your brother." I finally found my voice again, and it came out like steel. "You're not hearing me," I said. "He ruined himself. And if you can't see that, you can leave too." Dad stared at me like I'd slapped him. Then he scoffed, muttered something about me being poisoned by therapy and that boyfriend, and stormed out. The front door rattled when it closed. I sat down on the floor after he left, because my legs were shaking too much to stand. Liam crouched beside me and put a hand on my shoulder. I didn't cry. I just stared at the wall and felt hollow. The legal part was slow and ugly. I hired a lawyer because I didn't trust myself not to collapse in the middle of it. I filed complaints. I signed forms. I repeated the story over and over to strangers in calm offices while my stomach flipped. Every time I said the words, "My brother accessed my chart," it sounded surreal, like I was describing someone else's life. Evan's hospital terminated him quickly. That news came to me through my mother, sobbing, as if I'd personally walked into the building and fired him myself. "They walked him out," she cried, "like a criminal." "He is one," I said, and I hated how flat my voice sounded, like I'd been drained of softness. "What about you?" Mom snapped suddenly, anger cutting through her tears. "Do you have any idea what stress this is putting on us?" I stared at my phone, feeling my heartbeat thud behind my eyes. "Mom," I said slowly, "I have cancer." There was a pause. Then she said, "Don't say it like that," like the word itself was rude. That was the moment I realized my family's priority order crystal clear. Their comfort, Evan's image, the family story, and then, somewhere far down the list, my actual life. The medical board investigation took longer. Evan tried to spin it. He claimed he misclicked. He claimed he was concerned. He claimed he never disclosed anything, despite the fact half my extended family suddenly knew details I hadn't shared. He framed me as vindictive. He framed it as a family misunderstanding that should have been handled privately. When I heard that, something inside me went quiet, because it proved he still didn't get it. He still believed being family gave him ownership. The board didn't agree. When the letter finally came, it felt like holding a brick. My hands shook as I opened it. It stated that Evan's license was revoked due to egregious breach of patient confidentiality, unauthorized access, and unprofessional conduct. There were paragraphs of legal language that made my eyes blur, but one sentence stood out so starkly it might as well have been bold. His license was permanently revoked. No practice, no loophole. The thing my family had worshipped was gone. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the page. I expected to feel victorious. I expected relief. What I felt was grief. Not for Evan's career. He had set it on fire himself. But for the brother I kept hoping he could become. For the family I kept hoping would choose me over their image. For the innocence I didn't even realize I still had. The part that believed people would do the right thing if you explained it clearly enough. Evan showed up at my house 3 days later. I saw his car through the window, and my whole body went into fight or flight. Liam was at work. I was alone. I opened the door only because I didn't want him banging and making it a neighborhood spectacle, and because some stubborn part of me refused to be afraid of my own brother. He looked different without the scrubs. Smaller. Ordinary. His eyes were bloodshot, and his jaw had that unshaven roughness like he'd been sleeping badly. He stood on my porch with his hands clenched, breathing hard. "This is on you," he said immediately. I stared at him. I said because my brain couldn't compute the audacity. Evan's voice cracked, but not with remorse, with rage. "You didn't have to take it this far," he said. "You wanted to punish me. Admit it." I leaned against the doorframe because my knees felt weak. The air smelled like cut grass and hot pavement. A neighbor's dog barked once in the distance. "Evan," I said, "you accessed my medical records. I'm your brother." He snapped, like he was saying a magic phrase that erased laws. "I was trying to help. You were trying to control," I said. My voice was steady, but my hand were cold. "You took my information without my consent. You spread it. You used it to make yourself important." Evan's face twisted. "You're so obsessed with being wronged," he spit out. "You're sick." I flinched, not because of the insult, but because of the word. Sick. It landed in the worst place. My chest tightened, and I swallowed hard. Evan saw it and leaned in, like he'd found a weak point. "Look at you," he said. "You can't handle anything. You destroy everyone around you." My mouth went dry. For a second, the old version of me tried to rise, the one who explained, who soothed, who tried to make him understand. Then I remembered the kitchen, the joke, the shrug, the way he made my diagnosis entertainment, the way he blamed me for consequences. I straightened. "Get off my porch," I said quietly. Evan laughed once, bitter. "You think you're so strong now," he said. "Therapy has turned you into a monster." "No," I said. "Therapy reminded me I'm a person." Evan's eyes went glossy, and for the first time I thought he might actually cry. Not because he understood, because he finally lost something he cared about. "I can't work," he said, voice raw. "I can't do anything. Do you know what that feels like?" I looked at him for a long time. My throat ached. My body hurt in the familiar, grinding way it had since treatment started. I spoke slowly. "Do you know what it feels like," I said, "to have your own body betray you, and then have your own brother betray you too?" Evan's face hardened again, like empathy physically hurt him. "You always make it about you," he muttered. "It is about me," I said. "It's my health, my life, my privacy." He stepped back, nostrils flaring, and then he said the thing my family always says when they want me to fold. "Mum's devastated." I felt a pulse of anger, so clean it steadied me. "Mum should be devastated by what you did," I said. "Not by what I reported." Evan stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he only recognized the version of me that absorbed everything and smiled. He left without another word, just turned and walked down my steps, shoulders stiff, like he was carrying a weight he refused to name. His car backed out of my driveway too fast. After that, my family split into camps. Tasha posted vague things online about betrayal and snakes. My dad stopped speaking to me entirely, which would have broken me once. My mom sent long messages about forgiveness, about family, about moving forward. She never once asked how treatment was going. Not really. Not in the way that meant she wanted to know instead of just collecting information to feel involved. I stopped answering. Not dramatically. Not as punishment. As preservation. Because here's the part people don't tell you when you set boundaries. You don't just lose the people who are hurting you. You lose the fantasy of who they could have been. You lose the imagined apology you kept waiting for. You lose the version of the future where everyone magically becomes safe. But you also gain something that feels almost unfamiliar. Peace. Space. A life where your body can heal without also bracing for emotional ambush. There were nights I lay awake feeling guilty anyway. Because guilt is what families like mine install on you like software. Because I've been trained to believe consequences were cruelty. Because even after everything, part of me still wanted my brother to be okay. I would catch myself imagining him at home, staring at walls, spiraling, and my chest would ache. Then I'd remember him in that kitchen, laughing, sharing my diagnosis like it was gossip, watching me react like I was entertainment. I'd remember him showing up at my house, blaming me. I'd remember my father calling me dramatic, my mother making my cancer a footnote under Evan's crisis. And the guilt would shift into something else. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just certainty. I didn't ruin him. I didn't hold a grudge. I didn't do this out of spite. I did it because my privacy is not a family resource. My body is not a family group chat topic. My fear is not a lever anyone gets to pull. And if my brother couldn't be trusted with the most basic ethical rule of his profession, if he couldn't respect the line between access and entitlement, then he had no business having that license. That's not me being harsh. That's me being honest. Sometimes people ask, in that soft, judgmental way, do you regret it? I think about my life now, quieter, safer. I think about walking into appointments without worrying that Evan might somehow be watching from the shadows of a system he never should have touched. I think about how my friends show up without making it about themselves. I think about Liam holding my hand in waiting rooms, not because he needs control, but because he loves me. I think about the first time in my life I said no and didn't immediately backtrack. And I answered truthfully. I regret that my brother chose to do something unforgivable. I regret that my family tried to make me carry the blame for his choices. I regret the way it exposed exactly how conditional their support was. But I don't regret protecting myself. If anything, I regret how long it took me to believe I was allowed to.